I'm your host, Dana Morales, and on this episode of Fear the Bay, I'll talk about what should the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do with some of the players who are entering their contract year. Also, head coach Todd Bowles and general manager Jason Licht recently received contract extensions. We'll talk about that. Should the Tampa Bay Buccaneers trade for star pass rusher TJ Watt from the Pittsburgh Steelers? That'll be a point of discussion. And lastly, my thoughts on Madden 26, the newest addition to the Madden franchise. All that and more on this episode of Fear the Bay. The Buccaneers 2022 draft class included guys like Logan Hall, Luke Kadecki, Kate On is pretty stacked, Rashad White. You have Zion McCollum in the 5th round. 6 out of 8 players that the Buccaneers selected that year are still with the team, excluding punter Jake Camarda, who was released by the Buccaneers last year for poor performance, and Andre Anthony, 7th round pick out of LSU, the pass rusher. So those 6 out of 8 players are entering the final year of their rookie deal. So I'm going to talk about what should the Buccaneers do with them. Should they try to re-sign them early before the season even begins? We've seen that last year and in some years prior. Should they let them play out the season and see how everything unfolds? Should they let them test free agency at the end of next year? So what should the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do with them? I'll talk about that. There are other players who the Buccaneers have in their final year. Also guys like Mike Evans, who next year will be in a void year. Levante David. You have Hassan Reddick, who of course signed a 1-year deal this offseason. Christian Izien, who will be a restricted free agent next year. So I'm going to go one by one on this list and tell you my opinion. What should the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do with them? First up on this list is really a no-brainer. You have Mike Evans. Mike Evans, a future Hall of Famer. It's obvious. You got to keep him. You got to re-sign him. Make sure he's a Buccaneer for life. Likely what they would do is go the Levante David route, where they give him that 1-year contract. 1 year, see how long he wants to continue playing for. But he has stated, in 2028, the Olympics is going to include for the first time ever a flag football game. He wants to participate in that game. He's mentioned by 2028, he's likely already going to be retired. So the Buccaneers likely have 2, maybe 3 seasons, still left with Mike Evans. Re-sign him, that 1-year contract, and see, does he want to continue playing, year after year, have that sit down with him and see how much longer does he want to keep going for. Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick signed that 1-year deal with the Buccaneers this offseason. Hassan Reddick, when he signed, and still now, I see him as a mercenary, guy who's kind of like Ndamukong Suh, a guy who's going to play whoever really is going to pay him the most money. He's already been with 4 teams, and it's going to be his 5th team. He started with the Cardinals, Panthers, and Eagles. Last year with the Jets, of course, that didn't work out. Now with the Buccaneers, 5th team. So he's a guy who likely, I see him as just a 1-year, one and done here in Tampa. If he underperforms, has a 4.5, 6 sack season, the Buccaneers likely would not re-sign him. And if he overperforms, has 14, 15, 16 sacks, well, he just priced himself likely out of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers market. And will the Buccaneers be willing to pay top dollar for a guy in Hassan Reddick, who is not really a game changer? He's a solid pass rusher, really good, but he's not a game changer. He's not a game-changing pass rusher, a guy, not a J.J. Watt. You have a Myles Garrett, who's getting paid $40 million a year, and Aaron Donald, who can rush you from the line. He's not a game-changing pass rusher, so I see this as a one-and-done deal. He signed a $14 million deal this offseason. $12 million of that is guaranteed. This is likely his one-and-done year in Tampa. And, for him, it's really a redemption year. He came here. He has Larry Foote, who was his inside linebackers coach as a rookie with the Cardinals. He gets to face other teams that he played for, the Eagles, the Jets, the Cardinals, all the 4 teams that he's played for in the past, he gets to play for this year. So that likely played a part. And he's mentioned before that has played a part in his decision to come to Tampa Bay. So just a one-and-done deal. I don't see the Buccaneers re-signing, no matter if he underperforms or overperforms. I don't see him signing with the re-signing with the Buccaneers, because I see him as a guy who's likely going to re-sign with whoever's going to give him the biggest money contract out there. Levante David, this one, same thing, 1-year deal, same thing as Mike Evans, same thing, 1-year deal after your 1-year deal. I likely see this as his final year in Tampa, unfortunately. I don't know if he wants to continue going. He's talked about, already Savasier, Dennis, being that likely that next great Tampa Bay Buccaneers linebacker, and the Buccaneers have high hopes in Savonte Dennis. But I don't think that Lavonte David's going to want to continue playing after this year. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he continues playing, but he's a guy who just came in on the NFL Top 100 at ranking 96. So he's a guy who still has a lot of respect around the league, was always an underrated linebacker, but he's a guy who I see likely is in his final year, but we'll see how does the season end? Does that play a role? If the Buccaneers have a very bad season, he probably wouldn't be back. If the Buccaneers win a Super Bowl, does he want to run it back with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, or does he see that as his happy ending? So we'll see what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Lavonte David do at the end of next year. Logan Hall is an interesting case here. He's a guy who has improved over the years, slowly, but he has improved. Logan Hall, he started off his rookie year with 2.5 sacks, had only half a sack his second year, but this prior year he had 5.5 sacks. So he's been progressing. Todd Bowles had mentioned that quietly, Logan Hall is one of the guys who's had really one of the most productive off seasons out of any player he's seen in prior years. The Buccaneers are hopeful that he will, become a really good player for them, develop the way that they originally envisioned, because he was a raw talent, really athletic coming out, really like a JTS, a Joe Tryon-Shinka, who also didn't work out with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is now with the Cleveland Browns. But they hope, he's going to continue working his pass rushing moves. He's good against the run, but work on those pass rushing moves, get to the quarterback more often. But I don't know if 5.5 sacks is his ceiling, but maybe it really is. I see him as a guy who's kind of like a William Golston, a guy who's going to be really good against the run, but not going to give you that sack production that you would hope for. But still, 5.5 sacks. Maybe he can, continue to improve on that. Maybe have 7-8 sacks next year. We'll see. But he's a guy who, if he improves, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers likely will bring him back on a contract that makes sense. I don't think he's going to break the bank. I think he's going to ask for a reasonable contract, him as agent. So we'll see what happens with that. But I will let the season unfold with Logan Hall and let him even test free agency and see, what is his market, and will the Buccaneers, match his market, or will they let him, go off elsewhere like they did with JTS this year with the Cleveland Browns, who he moved on with them. Licht Todd is one of the players who, I envision is top on the priority list for who the Tampa Bay Buccaneers want to bring back and re-sign. So last year on May 13th, Antoine Winfield Jr. signed his extension with the Buccaneers. He got, he became the highest paid safety in the league at the time. On August 1st, Tristan Wirfs signed his big money contract extension, became the highest paid left tackle in the NFL. I see Licht Todd as one of the players who the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are really going to try to re-sign before the season even begins. You don't want him to, test free agency next year and, the free agent market just booms for tackles. Sometimes in free agency, a lot of times in free agency, teams throw money at positions, and you hope, throwing money at the position will help them, and really fix their issues, fix their real big holes on their team. But oftentimes that does not work. Alex Kappa a few years ago, he left the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, signed with the Bengals. It didn't work there. Now he's with the Raiders. But these big money contract extensions and signings and free agency often do not work. It's Tampa Bay Buccaneers like to keep their own players, and I see that happening definitely here with Licht Todd. I believe this will be one of the signings that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers prioritize if they try to get done before the season, week 1 even begins. Let's see. Rachaad White, he's posted on social media that this is the last ride. Now, he tried to play it off by saying he was listening to Luke Combs, I believe, some country music, and that, he was writing, this is the last ride. But I think we all know what he really means by that. This is his final year with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and, I don't blame him. Bucky Irving had such a great year last year that he's not the RB1 anymore. So what's going to happen likely with Rachaad White is he plays out the season. I don't think there'll be any drama. Bucky Irvin and White have talked about, that there's no real issue in that running back room. They support each other. They're there for each other. So I see Rachaad White playing out this season. He had 600 yards last year, rushing yards last year, and he didn't even, start, but he started most of the year, but, he didn't really, he would start, and then Bucky Irvin would get the hot hand, and then the Buccaneers, Liam Cohen would stick with Bucky Irvin for the most part. But 600 yards last year is still, solid for a guy who had, Bucky Irvin had over 1K yards, rushing yards last year, or 1,500 scrimmage yards. So Rachaad White will likely play out the season. There will likely be no drama with him and Bucky Irving. And what will happen is him and his agent is likely going to look for a team that needs an RB1, a team that really needs a starting running back. He's a really good pass blocker, the best pass blocking running back on this team. He's a good hands catcher. He can run routes, really good as a running back. He's a guy who bounces around and dances too much behind the line of scrimmage, but, he could provide you, a really solid starter, a fringe starter in the NFL. He's a guy who's likely, again, going to go with a team who's going to give him an opportunity to become the starting running back for their team. Cade Otton is a guy I really like, and I believe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will likely resign maybe around $11 million a year. He's a natural, dependable hands catcher. He's a guy who, when Mike Evans and Chris Godwin went down last year, Mike Evans with his hamstring injury and Chris Godwin with his dislocated ankle injury, Cade Otton really became for a few games the main target the go-to target for Baker Mayfield. I see him re-signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I see him not happening before the season like Luke Goedeke, but he'll play out the season, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will likely re-sign him when the time is right. Zion McCollum is really the clear CB1 on this team now. I believe the CB2 is Jamel Dean, or one of the rookies who's competing with Jamel Dean, Benjamin Morrison, or Jacob Parrish. So Zion McCollum has slowly became the CB1 on this team. He's a guy who's very versatile. Todd Bowles had mentioned him as one of the players who could be competing for the starting nickel position, but of course he's going to be, most likely he's going to be out there as he's starting outside corner. He's played safety before for the Buccaneers. So he's a guy who really can bounce around and play any position that the Buccaneers need to play on that defensive, backfield. I think this is a no-brainer. The Buccaneers should re-sign him. It should maybe be one of those situations where they re-sign him before the season begins, because you don't want, him to test free agency in that cornerback market to just, blow up and expand. Carlton Davis signed for a very big money contract. Carlton Davis, who former Tampa Bay Buccaneer, had been with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for many years, went on. He got traded to the Detroit Lions. The Buccaneers received a third-round pick for that trade. They used that third-round pick last year to draft Jalen McMillan, the rookie wide receiver out of Washington. So Carlton Davis this year signed with the Patriots in free agency. And it's a pretty big money contract for a guy who's injury prone very often. That's why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers decided to move on from him. But he signed a 3-year, $60 million deal. I wouldn't have signed him to that contract if I was the Patriots, but this is what happens in free agency. Teams have holes, so the Patriots had a hole at cornerback. They wanted to throw money at that problem, and they saw Carlton Davis as the best fit for their roster, so they gave him $20 million on average a year. That's way too pricey, in my opinion, for Carlton Davis. I think his best years are behind him. But Zion McCollum, he's a guy who I would hope that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers try to re-sign before the season even begins. But I see him sticking around with Tampa no matter what. Christian Izien is going to be a restricted free agent next year. He's a guy who's, again, very versatile like Zion McCollum. Last year when the Buccaneers had a lot of injuries at the cornerback position pretty early on. You had guys like, Bryce Hall went down. But Christian Izien, who has played high school, last time he played cornerback was in high school, and he went out there and he went outside corner. He played outside corner for the Buccaneers and did that pretty well. He's a safety who could play nickel, so he's a very versatile guy who never caused a problem. Had 2 interceptions in his rookie year, had 1 interception last year. He's going to be in his 3rd year this year, so he's a guy who I believe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will keep around. He's really solid depth, and he's also a guy who could be the starting nickel on this team. But he's a guy, of course, I believe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers should keep and match as a restricted free agent, match whatever offer any teams, if any team decides to offer him a contract, match whatever they're trying to sign him for. Greg Gaines is in his final year. He's good depth. Depth for Vita Vea at nose tackle. If he comes out for a few plays, Greg Gaines comes in. If Desmond Watson, the undrafted free agent, it gets on the practice squad, develops, the Buccaneers get him to the correct weight and strength that they want him to be at, I see maybe Greg Gaines, being a player who the Buccaneers can move on from or sign to a really cheap price tag, a veteran minimum possibly. But Desmond Watson becoming that backup nose tackle next year, not this upcoming season, to Vita Vea. So the Buccaneers will have, two solid nose tackles on their team. Kyle Trask is entering the final year of his deal. He signed a 1-year contract this offseason. He's a guy who's competing with Michael Pratt for the quarterback 2 position. We'll see what happens with him, but if no other team, is really willing to sign Kyle Trask or give him an opportunity to become a QB1, because again, nobody in the NFL knows exactly what Kyle Trask can do at this level. But if a team is willing to give him an opportunity to even to fight for a quarterback 1 position, then he'll likely take it. But I don't see that as, a realistic possibility. I see him likely re-signing with the Buccaneers or moving on elsewhere to become maybe with the Jacksonville Jaguars or with the Carolina Panthers, 2 schemes that he knows with Dave Canales and Liam Cohen. But the Buccaneers, likely re-sign him if the contract numbers are correct. Charlie Heck, we haven't seen him, but he's replacing Justin School as a new swing tackle for the Buccaneers. We'll let that one unfold and see how he performs. Sterling Shepard, who might not even make the team, so this one really has to be one of the ones that we have to see how everything unfolds. Sterling Shepard is fighting, for a wide receiver 5 or wide receiver 6 position. Of course, the Buccaneers drafted Emeka Buka from Ohio State. They also drafted in the 7th round Tez Johnson, who Todd Bowles has mentioned. He's playing so well, and he was performing so well in the OTAs and in mandatory minicamp that he's a guy who's playing himself into a very vital role on this offense. So Sterling Shepard, he's fighting for a wide receiver, likely wide receiver 6 position if Tez Johnson gets that wide receiver 5 position, which I guess he would most likely do or earn. Anthony Walker Jr. is another guy. He's coming in replacing really KJ Britt. KJ Britt goes to Miami. Anthony Walker Jr. comes in from Miami, so a swap there. He's a guy who had to see how everything plays out. Deion Jones, same thing. Bryce Hall, who had a very bad leg injury last year, carted off the field. He's back. He signed for I believe the veteran minimum this year. He provides very quality depth. He came over from the New York Jets. The Buccaneers have tried to trade for him in prior years, and the Buccaneers finally got him last year, but of course he suffered an injury very early on in the season. He's a guy who we have to see how does everything unfold for him. And we got O'Keefe. O'Keefe would be the last player we talked about. O'Keefe, he's really a blocking tight end. I think this will likely be his last year. I'm a big O'Keefe guy. I like O'Keefe, but personality-wise, but I don't believe that the Buccaneers, re-sign him. If they want to keep the whole tight end room still together with K-Dot, Payne Durham, Devin Cope, and O'Keefe, then they could keep him together. But he doesn't really provide, enough production to warrant him sticking around. Maybe he does for a very cheap price tag, but he's a guy who the Buccaneers could move on, and I don't really believe that a lot of people would even notice that he's missing from the roster here. But those are the players that really are in their final year of their deals, and we have to see, what will the Tampa Bay Buccaneers do with them. Let's move on now to our top 3 headlines of the week. Bucs fans, want to know how you can help this channel Fear the Bay grow and expand? Well, all you have to do is 3 simple things, and they're absolutely free. First off, subscribe. If you subscribe and you hit the notification button, you're notified anytime I upload a new video. Also, like and comment. Those things also take multiple seconds. When you like, comment, and subscribe, to the channel. What YouTube does is it sees this and it starts to boost out content to more Buccaneers fans like yourself. So if you liked what you've heard so far, please like, subscribe, and comment, and that will help our channel grow. And you can do those things. It takes multiple seconds and it's absolutely free. Let's get back to the video. The Glazers, the owners of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, recently decided to give a contract extension to both Todd Bowles, the head coach, and general manager Jason Licht. Now, I am a big fan of these two extensions. I'm going to talk about Jason Licht first. Jason Licht has really, he's the guy who created the mastermind behind this roster, of course. He's the guy who built a team that attracted Tom Brady, the greatest quarterback of all time, and allowed him to come here in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win their second Super Bowl in franchise history, Tom Brady's seventh Super Bowl. But, Jason Licht's career in Tampa started off a bit rough. He starts off with Lovie Smith. That didn't work out with him as head coach. Buccaneers then move on to Dirk Cutter. That doesn't work out, and he survives those two, coaching stints here in Tampa. Then the Buccaneers move on to sign Bruce Arians, who comes out of retirement, former head coach of the Cardinals, and that definitely worked out. The Buccaneers win a Super Bowl with Bruce Arians as their head coach and general manager Jason Licht as the general manager. And now they're with, of course, Todd Bowles, and he's had success, 3 back-to-back playoff appearances underneath Todd Bowles, and likely a 4th playoff appearance this year. But it started off pretty rough for Jason Licht. He comes in, he has a 2-14 season in 2014. That leads him to the first overall pick in 2015, who that becomes, of course, Jameis Winston. 2015, 6-10 year, 2016, 9-7. Then in 2017 and 2018, those are both 5-11 years. So, really down years besides 2016, where he's barely above 500. 2019, a 7-9 year. And then finally that 2020 season where he is 11-5. That is Tom Brady comes in and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers go on to win a Super Bowl with him as the QB1. After that, since then, the Buccaneers have been to the playoffs for 5 consecutive seasons now. 4 straight to back-to-back NFC South championships. And, he's turned the franchise really around, providing, a lot of people credit Tom Brady for the culture shift here in Tampa, which he does warrant a lot of respect and a lot of admiration for that culture shift in Tampa Bay. But who is the mastermind behind this franchise and behind this team? It is, of course, general manager Jason Licht, who is probably the most underrated general manager there is in this league. Always guys like Harry Roseman from the Eagles, gets a lot of, praise for his decision making. But Jason Licht has done a phenomenal job here in Tampa, making Tampa really a Super Bowl contender. So I'm a big fan of this Jason Licht re-signing. He gets to stick around for who knows how many more years, but he's in his mid-50s, so he'll likely, stick. He could be, 70 years old as a general manager. I hope he sticks around for as long as he possibly can. If he continues to draft and, sign free agents like he has, finding really good bargain deals, and re-signing his own players with Mike Greenberg at his side as his salary cap wizard. So I'm really a big fan of the Jason Licht signing, and I'm a big fan also of the Todd Bowles signing. Of course, Todd Bowles was here in 2020 when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. He was the defensive coordinator at the time, really destroyed Patrick Mahomes in that Super Bowl. The Eagles have been the only other team this year to make Patrick Mahomes look like he did in the Super Bowl. But Todd Bowles gets re-signed. Of course, he has a 28-27 overall record as the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So pretty much a 500 record. But he's provided the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with 3 back-to-back-to-back playoff appearances under his leadership. 3 back-to-back-to-back NFC South championships. His biggest downfall is his game management ability. Sometimes he plays, a bit too soft on defense, but I don't think that is by design, of course. I don't believe that he's not going to throw anybody under the bus, but he always blames communication. But I believe, he doesn't have, at the time, back then, these past couple years, he didn't have the pass rushers or the pass rush group that he would want to have. He didn't have corners who could stay healthy and could play man-to-man defense. I think that's going to change this year with guys that they brought in. You have Zion McCollum who could play man-to-man defense. You have Benjamin Morrison who could do that also. You have Jacob Parrish, who Mike Evans said has been everywhere. He's been playing multiple positions, but mostly that nickelback position with Christian Izien, who was out during mandatory minicamp. But finally, he's going to be able to play, I think, a bit more aggressive. Really play the type of defense that Todd Bowles wants to play. A very aggressive defense. Not too aggressive, not overly aggressive, but an aggressive defense. For his game management issues, a lot of Bucs fans get upset with his game management issues. Of course, not taking timeouts in certain situations where probably he should take a timeout. But those game management issues, maybe, they're a thing of the past because he did bring in, a games management specialist to help him out. I believe he's going to be staying in the booth, the game management specialist, and helping Todd Bowles out. And they're working now during the offseason, working with all coaches, so everybody is on board there. But these are two contract extensions that I 100% agree with. I believe they're warranted and they're earned. These two men, they earned those contract extensions. I am excited to see what can they do as they continue to progress moving forward together. Of course, Jason Licht and his scouting department, they know exactly the type of player that Todd Bowles needs for his defense, the type of prototype for corners or, defensive linemen or safeties. So I like this tandem between Jason Licht and Todd Bowles, and I'm excited to see what can he continue to do moving forward. I see them as a Super Bowl contender this year, and we'll see if that really comes to fruition as the season comes along. Should the Tampa Bay Buccaneers trade for TJ Watt? I believe they should. This is a move that I believe would push them to become the top elite team in the NFC, right next to the Philadelphia Eagles. So what's going on with TJ Watt's contract situation with the Pittsburgh Steelers? Well, he's in year 4 of a 4-year, $112 million contract. He is 30 years old right now. He's going to become 31 years old on October 11th. So he's a guy who really wants to cash in, wants to get his final big money contract of his career. But he's a guy who I believe would provide a lot of, very high value sack production for the Buccaneers. If you look at this past year, he had 11.5 sacks, which tied him for 8th most in the league. The year before, he had 19 sacks in 2023. In 2022, he had 5.5 sacks, but he was dealing with multiple injuries. He had a torn pectoral injury. He had a multiple rib injuries. He had a knee injury. So he only appeared in 10 games for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But you look at 2021 and his sack production there, he had 22.5 sacks. So the Buccaneers will be trading for an elite pass rusher, a superstar pass rusher who I believe, again, would truly make the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a Super Bowl contender. I view them as one of the teams in the NFC who are fighting to be one of those top final teams and to be the representative for the NFC in the Super Bowl this year. But if you really want to get there, if you really want to be a Super Bowl contender and get past teams like the Eagles and the Rams and the 49ers, I believe this would be a move that makes sense for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What would be the cost? Well, I view if the Buccaneers are going to make this trade, what would I be comfortable with? I love draft picks. Jason Licht loves draft picks. He's built this team truly off of his draft picks. But sometimes you got to trade those draft picks away, and you gotta spend them to get some players who are gonna win you a Super Bowl. And I believe this will be one of those moves. What will I be comfortable with though? I'll be comfortable with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers trading this year's second round pick and next year's second round pick. So 2 second round picks in exchange for TJ Watt. His contract situation can all be situated by Mike Greenberg. The Buccaneers have shown in the past that if a Super Bowl is potentially on the rise, they are not scared to max out the credit card and pay for it with void years down the line. They did that for multiple years after Tom Brady left. What would his contract situation most likely look like if the Buccaneers traded for him and they gave him that big money contract that he's looking for? Would it likely be the Myles Garrett contract that he received this year for the Cleveland Browns, which is a very big money contract. I believe all these guys are grossly overpaid, but this is a salary cap situation, and this is the NFL. This is the state of the NFL at this point, which is good for them. So They work for these type of contracts. But Myles Garrett received a 4-year, $160 million contract this offseason. That is an average annual salary of $40 million. He has $123.5 million of that guaranteed. So basically, the first 3 years are all guaranteed on that contract. It will likely look like that for TJ Watt with the Buccaneers, but instead of 3 years being guaranteed, likely just the first 2 years being guaranteed. Buccaneers fans might be, a bit, scared to move on from 2 second-round picks and to sign TJ Watt to such a big money contract. But again, do you want to just be close to winning a Super Bowl, or do you want to actually win a Super Bowl? Do you want to be right there at the very end with a chance to hold a third Vince Lombardi trophy for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Again, I don't see 2 second-round picks as a high cost for a premier pass rusher like TJ Watt. Trey Hendrickson with the with the Cincinnati Bengals is another player who is pretty equivalent. I would be okay with the Buccaneers trading for him too, for the same thing, 2 second-round picks, and giving him that Myles Garrett type contract. But which one is more realistic? I believe that TJ Watt contract and trade acquisition would be the most realistic, option for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Will it happen? Maybe not. But would I like for it to happen? Definitely. I believe, again, this will make the Tampa Bay Buccaneers maybe the premier team in the NFC and compete against anybody who the AFC puts up in the Super Bowl, whether it's the Chiefs, whether it's the Ravens, whether it's the Buffalo Bills, whether it's the Cincinnati Bengals. I believe the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be well equipped to face any team that comes their way if everybody on the roster, their core guys, including in this scenario, TJ Watt, is able to stay healthy and provide very good sack production for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. In other news, Madden 26 will come out in August, and they recently released their Madden 26 franchise deep dive. Now, I'm a big Madden franchise guy. I believe for several years that the EA Sports has, and like many fans believe EA Sports has really it's put aside the franchise mode and not really taking care of it. They take care of other modes like Superstar mode or Madden Ultimate mode, Madden Ultimate Team. But franchise is, really, for me, it's the core of Madden for me. I like to build a team, get a team that doesn't, it's not too good, turn it into a Super Bowl contender, and really live out that franchise scenario there. But the new Madden 26, it does look promising. They added coaches' abilities and different things for the coaching side. Different coaching abilities will affect the scheme and will affect your playbook for that week and how you match up against the opposing team's defense or offense. One of the coolest things I think this game is going to include is it's called the Coach DNA. So it's going to have AI that acts and would replicate what a real coach would do in the NFL. So, for example, maybe if you're playing against the Lions and you have Dan Campbell as their head coach, of course, that he might be more aggressive. It might go for a 4th down or something like that. If you have Todd Bowles, will he likely miss a timeout in a crucial situation? But it will, when you're going up against teams like the Rams with Sean McVay or against Kyle Shanahan in the 49ers, it will it'll feel likely more authentic when you go up against these teams as it does now. Because right now, I play on the ultimate, hardest difficulty, and it doesn't feel that hard once you've played enough and your offense and defensive scheme is pretty easy, becomes too easy. But if you're including AI in the game, I believe it's going to make it more challenging. It's going to make it more of an authentic scenario and an experience for players. And other news also, in franchise mode, they included wear and tear. So this is something that was in the college football game last year. Now it's transferred over, EA transferred over also to Madden. So for example, like, if your quarterback, the way it might work out here in Madden is if your quarterback keeps getting hit low, maybe it starts having a yellow highlighter on his leg, then it turns to orange, it turns to red, but if he keeps getting hit in a certain area, you might have to rest him, you might have to, not play him that week. You can risk him continue playing out there, but you're going to risk an injury. So it becomes more of a realistic scenario in terms of injuries, because injuries in prior years with Madden, they just feel random. Like, your guy could be running and then he has a torn ACL or something. Like, it just feels pretty random, the injuries, and they don't make sense a lot of times. But with this, where you could see guys, potentially forming an injury, a potential injury, a spot, maybe a shoulder keeps, getting damaged. You might need to rest that guy throughout the week in practice or during the game to avoid any long-term injury scenario. So that is something I really like, the additional wear and tear for Madden 26. Rich Eisen is going to be the narrator for the coaches mode for coach storylines in Madden 26. So he'll provide some different commentary there. So if you decided to, for example, if you made a custom head coach in Madden 26 and you decide to bench your starting QB1, he will have commentary on that end. You have press conferences about that situation and your decision. Meaningful weather. So this is something that Madden 26 has included here. So when it rains, you're going to feel in the game like it actually is raining. It's going to be more difficult to pass. Same thing with heavy snow. So you play, for example, in Green Bay and in Lambeau Field late in the season. You play in Buffalo late in the season, in Kansas City late in the season. You're going to feel that, feel that effect. It's going to be really hard for you to pass in these scenarios. So likely you're going to have to just run the football and try to do the best you can there. But guys who I've seen in the trailers are slipping on the field. So, they really took a step forward here, I feel like, in realism and authenticity. Thursday night football, Sunday night football, Monday night football are all going to have their own special look and feel. So the look, the display for, the teams and the score and the timeouts, the music being played, the commentators, they're all going to be different for Thursday, Sunday, and Monday night football. So it's going to make the game feel a bit different. It's going to feel, like those games are actually, those primetime games are different than the normal games, the Sunday 1 o'clock or Sunday 4 o'clock games. Because right now, every game, I don't look at the exact dates. So I don't know if this is a Monday Night Football. I just skip. They don't feel any different, but they're going to feel different soon. So that's something exciting. And then Scott Hansen is going to be the host of the halftime report show and also of the weekly recap show. So that's going to be really interesting there. They also said that there's going to be some core improvements in terms of draft logic. So maybe in prior years, some teams, they might select a quarterback in the first round and they already have two really good quarterbacks on their team or a really good quarterback to begin with. New unique draft prospects. So they're going to include a whole new batch of draft prospects. I don't know exactly what this is going to look like. But we'll see as the game gets closer and we get a better look at the game. Improved team need logic. So again, maybe in free agency, a team is targeting a top end. And in prior years, a team, for example, the Buccaneers in the franchise mode, if you're not the Buccaneers and they're the CPU, maybe they're trying to acquire a top end left tackle in free agency. But of course, they already have Tristan Wirfs on the team, so why are they going out for a left tackle, trying to acquire a top and left tackle? So those issues will likely be fixed in this game. Improved simulation stats, revamped player tag logic, and developmental trait regression logic. So it all sounds good. It looks good so far. I don't believe they did enough in franchise mode to warrant, this being, make franchise mode players happy or fully satisfied, but we'll see. Maybe they continue to add stuff. Maybe they haven't shown everything also. But in terms of the look and feel of the game, the AI ability, I believe all games being created now should have AI. It makes, the game more interesting. Instead of going against the CPU, it's a intelligent AI that is playing an opposite of you. So that's going to be really interesting. The wear and tear again, the coach's storyline, all these things have me looking forward to Madden 26. I'm going to be excited when it comes out and to see, exactly what changes did he make in franchise mode. Is it a very big improvement, or is it kind of like it is every year? They promise, EA Sports promises things, and they really don't come to fruition the way that you expect them. Bucs fans, thank you guys for listening. If you like today's episode of Fear the Babe, please subscribe, like, and comment. All those things help out the algorithm. helps me grow Fear the Bay, helps me get my content out to more Buccaneers fans like yourself. Also, July 24th and July 25th will be the first 2 practices of Buccaneers training camp. I will be in attendance, so I will have some content for you from those 2 practices. I'm excited. Buccaneers football is soon. Thank you guys for watching again, and I am your host, Dan.